Hey guys, it's Dr. McGlasson. I've had a few students who have contacted me saying that they really feel like they're lost on the monetary policy piece of the Country Analyst Assignment that is due shortly. So I figure if I've had a couple people tell me, there's probably more people who haven't told me. So let me go ahead and do a quick run through of this assignment. So remember, on the website you have already found me a fiscal policy, that is a changes in taxes or spending by the government of your country in order to target the macroeconomic goals. And now we're looking for monetary policy, which is a change in the money supply in order to target the macroeconomic goals. And what it means is I either want to make it easier to get money so people spend more, which stimulates, or I want to make it harder to get the money, which means I'm going to slow things down. Remember, what you do not want to do is to do a web search on Haiti monetary policy, because you will get horrible results. You get these government country studies, you don't get recent articles, and getting things that people did for journals from 2007 or maybe 2011. So none of this is going to be any good for me. If I look at any of this stuff, I'm probably going to get something that doesn't make any sense to me. I need an article that's in plain English, and what I would get if I clicked on something like this is this big paper that somebody presented at a conference, a 99-page paper. Do not want that. So get rid of that. What I could look at instead are things like, maybe do a news search to see if Haiti's done anything with the reserve requirements. Although when I tried to do news searches on these things, I wasn't really finding anything recent. I had probably more work than a lot of you have to do this, because Haiti's such a mess and their government really doesn't have the resources to try to get things back in order, so it's kind of a vicious circle for them. What I found ultimately, let me actually, because I had done a search yesterday, I did finally find some stuff. One was I ended up doing an image search on interest rates, because I couldn't find something specifically that talked about them changing their interest rates, but I could find some trend data on interest rates. The other thing that I found when I looked up Haiti's central bank was that they have done one thing this past year. So the two articles that I found that I could possibly use, and I only need one, I'm just giving you two examples of things that could be used, is that I found one article that says the Haitian central bank, the HRB, is starting its first credit bureau. Okay. And what that's going to mean for them is that in the past, because it's so hard to come by data, it was difficult for the lenders. The lenders would have people come to them and apply, and they just didn't know how big of a credit risk they were, and they were very reluctant to lend them money. With the credit bureau, they now will have an official entity that will be able to do background checks, credit checks, so the lenders don't have to do all that work. It makes it easier for them, lower cost for the lender, to actually lend money to people. So with the credit bureau providing that information, it means that the lending process goes faster, so it's easier for the lenders to be willing to make the loans. It's easier for the small businesses to get the loans. Having more money out there, more loans, means aggregate demand shifts to the right. While that may cause some inflation for them, it also is likely to give them that increase in GDP, so they get some growth, which then also gives them jobs and brings down unemployment, which is the thing that they're most worried about. So that's one possible monetary policy that I could use. The other one is that I couldn't find something specifically saying what they're doing with interest rates, but I could observe by looking at interest rates what was going on. This first chart that I have says, as of 2003, they actually had interest rates that were above 30%. Since then, they brought them down. They brought them down again. By 2013, they were down around 7%, which is good. And now here I am continuing, beginning January 2014, 7%, 7%, 7%. Somewhere last spring and summer, the interest rates climbed up to 12%. So since then, the interest rates have been higher. Well, what happens when the interest rates are higher? It makes it more expensive to borrow money, and you actually find that, oh, something got screwed up in my graph here. You actually find that aggregate demand will shift to the left. My label is hanging out over here, but here's my aggregate demand curve. So my demand shifts inward because the money's too expensive to borrow. Less borrowing, less spending, aggregate demand falls. What that does is brings inflation down, which for some countries is good, but if you were to look back at my website, inflation was not their biggest worry. Their biggest worry had been about jobs. They had something like 90% by some estimates unemployment. So this policy would bring down inflation, discouraging the spending, is also going to have a contraction in their GDP. GDP will shrink, jobs go away, and they will be losing jobs that they really need pretty badly. So, for whatever reason, this is what's happening to their interest rates, and I'm just reporting on the results. So if I jump over to my Haiti policy page. Right now I'm on the fiscal policy, which you've seen already, but I go over to monetary policy. I chose, just because the describing it was easier, the laying out was easier, so that you guys, it's more clear to you. I use the interest rate example. I could as easily have used the fact that their central bank is establishing its first credit bureau, and maybe I'll add that in too, just to say here are two different examples of monetary policy that you could be looking at. Particularly because the one about the credit bureau seems to really be addressing what I found to be their major economic concerns from the second assignment, and this, whatever's happening to their interest rates, seems to be going in the opposite direction of where they want to be going. But just showing you the interest rates, that they were at a high of 30% at one point. They came down to 7%, so that was good for them. That would stimulate the economy, but just this past few months, they've come back up to 12%. And what the effect of that would be is to have an inward shift of the aggregate demand. Again, I don't know why my label is whacked out here, but I will fix that at some point. The increase in interest rates decreases the aggregate demand because it's more expensive to borrow. That brings down prices, but it also causes contraction in the economy. So what is the policy? I described the policy in a sentence or two. How are the goals affected? As a result of the decreasing aggregate demand, prices are expected to decrease, as would Haiti's GDP. The decline in GDP would in turn translate to job loss and higher unemployment. And then my conclusion here is bad news for Haiti, as you call from the goals research, and I've actually linked back to the goals research. Unemployment's already a major concern for them. Some of the best projects are the ones that make sure that they're always reconnecting the information that you've already found. So if I'm looking at the goals, how is that connected back to the information you found about what they were concerned about in the goals? So I'm tying it back to the second assignment. So basically that's it. I've got my fiscal policy now, I've got my monetary policy now, so I am done with this assignment, and I can go take quiz number 6. If you have questions, certainly let me know. If you need me to check out your assignment before it's due, I'll try to keep an eye on your messages today. Otherwise, I will see you shortly in class.